So everything changed from the moment I understood that I should think about the small problems I had here just in front of me. And now, when I think about them, I always do this exercise of thinking about a business that can solve that problem. How do you recognize a company which is truly sustainable? And my answer was, if they tell also the failure when it comes to sustainability, I trust them. If they don't tell that and everything seems super nice and perfect, there is something wrong. In our opinion, these small farmers keep alive biodiversity, tradition, and they are also very innovative as well when it comes to being resilient to climate change issues and challenges. They are very smart and find very interesting solution. It's like cultivating an olive tree. It takes time.
Welcome to today's episode. We're going to be speaking with Corrado, founder at Boniviri. We'll discuss his journey building a business that supports sustainable smallholder agriculture in his home region of Sicily in Italy. Enjoy the conversation. Hi, Corrado. Welcome to the podcast. Thanks for making the time to speak with us today. I just wanted to maybe start with you giving us a quick introduction about yourself.
Yeah. So my name is Corrado Paterno Castello. I am an entrepreneur. I founded my company called Boniviri 4 years ago. I actually worked as sustainability consultant and project manager in the field of sustainability and agriculture before. But then after a few experiences, I decided to found my company together with other business partners and friends. I started trying to solve a social issue that is very important in my region, in Sicily, but also in Italy in general. And from that problem, I tried to create a business that could contribute positively to this challenge.
Right. So you talked about a very important issue that you think is facing both Italy and Sicily. Could you maybe tell us a bit more about what that issue is? So what's the major issue that you're trying to solve?
Yeah, sure. So the main, let's say, background is agriculture, which is the challenge for small farmers to market their products and through the marketing of their products, sustain their jobs. So in Sicily, and in Italy in general, what's happening is that if you are small, you are, first of all, keeping alive a tradition of production, because in Italy we have a lot of small, excellent tradition of food production, but it's very difficult to have a brand, go to market, do all the exploitation phase, while these producers are very good when it comes to the production part, the field. So our idea was to help them go through all what happens after the product is ready. And doing that, it means taking care of go-to-market, customer care, business development, and so on. Also product design. We did that with a common brand, but the brand itself tells the story of these small, excellent farmers that we work with. We have 14 of them. We started with 6, now there are 14. In our opinion, these small farmers keep alive biodiversity, tradition, and they are also very innovative as well when it comes to being resilient to climate change issues and challenges. They are very smart and find very interesting solution. So what we do on a daily basis is to provide them a standard in terms of quality of sustainability, work with them to improve their practices and create a community of excellent farmers on one side. On the other, we market their products and take care of all the go-to-market phase. So we are basically selling the products through different channels, which are mostly B2B channels right now. And we started with really an incredibly small amount of olive oil bottles, 100. And then after that, we keep increasing the number of products, meeting new clients. And we work mainly in Italy, but also we have few clients in Europe as well. But what is interesting in this story is that we applied since the beginning a very strict approach in terms of social entrepreneurship. So we are a benefit company, a certified B Corp, and we applied the theory of change in the definition of our social objectives since the beginning. So we know how we want to create that impact, and we do backward. We define all the outcomes and output and activities that we need to put in place in order to get there.
Amazing. So sounds really interesting. And already just listening to you, I have so many questions. So I kind of want to go in a lot of different directions. But one thing I'd love to start with is just understanding before you existed, how were these small farmers managing? What were they doing to sell their products or bring them to the market?
Sure. So I know it firsthand because my father was a agricultural entrepreneur. Then he sold his
Oh,
company 15 years ago. And one of my business partners, Sergio, is currently a producer. So I knew the challenge that they're facing firsthand. And what's happening is that when you produce, first of all, you don't know how much you will produce because one year you have product, one year you don't have. And it's very difficult to keep the clients on year by year because if you don't have products, you don't, they will go to another one. And then the next year you have to start from zero again. And secondly, since you don't have the stability in terms of production, if you're small, it's very difficult to build a stable chain, and that means that you don't have the liquidity to spend to improve your company. So you stay small, and at a certain point, when you have a lot of production, but because it can happen, you basically you sell that at not at a fair price, at the price that they offer, because there are of course these companies that buy, and for example, extra virgin olive oil and sell it, but they do just this kind of business of negotiating the raw materials like that. So you won't sell it at a good price. And so our idea was let's pay producer a fair price every year and give them stability. So if one year, for instance, they have a surplus of production of 30-40%, we want to be able to cover it, pay it at a fair price, and let the farmer grow and be sure that they will have that kind of income that can sustain his business. And secondly, what happens when you are a small farmer is that you have to spend money to do marketing. So you have to create a brand, labels, you have to do some marketing expenses, you have to do customer care, shipping costs, and so on. And you have to buy, of course, the packaging. While we do all of that. So basically, farmers have more cash to spend on the field than before. And this is incredibly important for them because they don't risk. Because even if they do that on their own, often they do big mistakes. It happened a lot to my father and to my business partner as well, that you believe that 1 year is going to be great and you spend a lot of money and then it's a failure. And then here after is exactly the opposite. So we want to, let's say, balance this kind of flow and help the farmer be sure that what they do, at least for the 50%, is sold at a good price and they can focus on what they do on the field. On the other hand, we ask them to be very careful when it comes to sustainability and quality. So we want this product to be at the top of the sustainability standards and at the top of the quality standards. Because of course, when we sell, we have a premium price, and our products should be great products because the clients, of course, are high end that really care about the quality of what they are buying.
yeah, of course. And actually thinking about the end consumer, it sounds like with the level of investment you've put into sustainability and to quality, that it's more of a sort of premium, higher end product. So I guess how in a B2B setting are you able to target these higher end clients? Is it just going to more expensive supermarkets or what does that look like?
So we found a niche in which we are more keen to buy product at a higher price, but we don't mind, and that's gifting. So when you make a gift, basically, even if you spend a little bit more, you don't care because you're not comparing that gift at the shelf of the supermarket. So
Yeah.
when you make a gift, you only care that the gift is on budget and it's nice. So we
Yeah.
started working a lot with companies that do gifting to their employees, clients, and so on. And that is a very interesting market for us. First of all, because so our direct competitors are not doing gifting, and secondly, because we are specialized in customizing the products, so we can customize the box, the labels, the story, everything, the leaflet, everything that comes to your door, and that's something that companies like a lot. On a business perspective, was very interesting because it was, a big opportunity. And when it comes to the negotiation of this kind of gifts, normally the company have a budget. So they tell you, okay, I have 25 euros per employee. I have 200 employees. give me some option. And that's a good way that we can manage having a premium price, because that premium price comes with a nice story that they can tell. And secondly, it comes with a customization that can be very costly otherwise, but we integrate it within our offer. When it comes to restaurants, reseller, we try to go high end. So we are in very important restaurants, hotels, 5-star hotels in Italy. They really care about quality mainly. And we answer to that need. And we are also able to create the product that they need. So there are chefs that ask you to find that specific type of extra virgin olive oil produced in that way with that bottle and that label. We can do that. We scout the right product, label it, and so on. Or we directly create it on the field if we can. We are, at the border of being producer and consultant somehow to create the perfect product that fits that need. Yeah, and second, finally, I want to add that at the end, when it comes to the B2C consumer, which organically get to know our products, he goes to our website, or she goes to our website and want to buy again because the product is very good. So that's why on our website we provided like bigger size formats. For instance, the tin of 5 liters of extra virgin olive oil or 1 kilo of almonds, which are much less expensive because the packaging is very costly. So in that way, they can buy a product which is more or less at the level of a supermarket, high-end supermarket product. So when you go to the supermarket and want to buy a 1 liter of extra virgin olive oil, right now in Italy, a decent one is going to be 15, 12, 13 euros per liter. On our website, it's 15 if you buy the tin. So and the shipment is included because you buy 5 liters, but you get a much higher quality product in comparison to what you get at the supermarket. So that's mainly the value proposition.
Really interesting. Actually, I'd love to understand this point. You said packaging is a significant percentage of costs. What's like the rough breakdown in the cost structure in percentages? If you think about a bottle of olive oil, 1 liter at a premium of the oil versus the bottle itself versus the marketing and distribution.
Yeah. So the oil itself is going to be more or less 65-70%. 30 is label, bottle, cup, box where you put the oil, shipment, and also the shipment that you need to pay in order to get the product to your warehouse. And finally, in our case, also the compensation of the emission of the products, because we offset all the emission of all our products. So we integrate that in the cost of production. So roughly from 65 to 75 is product, and the rest is packaging and
okay, that's actually also, this emissions bit is also an interesting one. So I'd love to also spend a bit of time on this, on both the tradition/social impact bit as well as the climate. Since you mentioned emissions, let's start with climate first. So how are you assessing the climate impact of both your growing operations as well as distribution? And how are you working to offset those emissions?
Okay, we apply, first of all, the GHG methodology. So we calculate scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions of all the organizations. I have a huge Excel file mapping all the operations that we have, from the purchasing of the labels, of the boxes, of everything. And when it comes to products, our most important product is extra virgin olive oil. It's 60% of the revenues we make every year. So on that specific product, I personally did with a friend of mine that was a consultant in EY, a carbon footprint of that product, considering 2 real supply chains that I have. So I asked basically to producers everything from the gasoline that they use to the fertilizers, everything that they use on the field, in order to understand their impact, calculate it through a database that offers all the emission factors, and then get to know what is the impact of a extra virgin olive oil bottle, and then on average. About the other products, I take the data from the database. I get the help from another friend of mine, which is a startup doing this, which is called Mugo, and it gives me help, giving me all the data that I need. for wine, for spices, herbal teas, and so on. So that's something I do with the literature data, basically. But everything I can control. So travels, shipment, and so on. I'm talking about scope 3. It's
Right.
mapped. Scope 1 and 2 are very, very little because basically we are a company that purchase and sell. So I don't have a lot of scope 1 and 2 for the moment. And then at the end of the day, what I'm trying is I'm trying to reduce the emission, find good solution in terms of logistic and also product. For instance, if I can, I prefer to buy glass produced in Sicily when it's possible. So I try, if I can, it's not always easy. I try to avoid, big shipment of the packaging that comes from other parts of Europe, gets here, and then and secondly, I try also to use labels that are made with a specific type of paper, which is made from agricultural byproducts that
Interesting.
reduce carbon footprint. So there are a lot of strategies, and on the field, I know that my supply chain is extremely light in terms of carbon footprint because they don't use, basically, they are very light in what they use on the field. They irrigate a little, so the irrigation is important because in Sicily you have to pump the water up, and so you use electricity. Our scope 3 emission for us are not so, high in comparison to other businesses. Yeah, so that's what
Interesting.
we do, and then we offset the emission that we cannot reduce.
Okay. So, two follow ups on that. One, I'd love to understand if you think about growing and then you think about distribution, the two bits which fall into your scope 3, right? It's the farmers who are growing their product, and then you do the processing, and then the distribution, which is the second part of it. What do you think is the rough split in percentage of the carbon intensity of the growing part versus the production versus the distribution, if you had to put some ratios?
I can tell you, I don't remember by heart, but I have
Okay.
the impact report. So every year I publish an impact report which is based on the benefit company regulation and the B Corp standard and the theory of change. So you can find our theory of change and all the results, and also the CO2 emissions. So it's here. So from production, purchase of materials and so on, is 25 tons, and the total of our emission is 46. So yeah, roughly a little bit more than a half is production. And a good part of our emission is the distribution, the travel, the mobility, because we do a lot of business fairs. So we travel a lot, we use flights, and it's quite heavy. It's in percentage. And then we have, for instance, end of life of products as well is quite important. It's 4 tons so it's 10% roughly. So to answer your question, more or less half of our emission comes from production.
Okay.
Production and the packaging as well. Because we consider the product.
Fully packaged product. Okay.
Yeah, the fully.
That makes sense. The second question might be a bit controversial and difficult. So, there has been, as you already probably know, some amount of backlash against the idea of emissions offsetting. We know it's useful, but there have been some issues of people misusing the system and not actually being fully open with the emissions reporting when companies like yourselves are buying these offsets. What has been your experience with buying emissions offsets for a B2B, and how are you able to QC that the emissions offsets that you're buying are actually legitimate?
Yeah, so I like the question. Actually, it's very interesting. So first of all, we offset through carbon credits which are certified. So the certification is quite important when you buy this kind of credits, because it should be, the guarantee that these projects are actually offsetting, capturing the CO2. But in any case, the latest regulations, so the green claims regulation, the greenwashing regulation, are pushing through reduction strategies rather than offsetting strategies. So to answer to your question, first of all, since all this big discussion about it, we don't communicate a lot about it. I take it for granted. So I am a business that should, be carbon neutral if we can. So we do it, but I don't communicate a lot on it because it's risky to communicate right now. You in order to communicate, you should do an ISO, about the way you calculate, and then you should certify through another certification the way you offset. And it's expensive. It's going to cost 10K roughly that we cannot spend right now. So I'm doing it because I care about it and I have the experience to do it on my own, but I'm not certifying. Since I'm not certifying the process through an external third party, I won't tell publicly I have this carbon neutrality claim on the product. So I tell it, but in a very telling how I did the calculation. So you can see in my report all the way we do the calculation, the way we offset. But it's not my first claim when I sell the product. And secondly, the idea that I have, but it's very difficult to put in place because we're too small so far, is to inset in my supply chain, basically. So my idea is to improve the practices on the field of my producers. And then if I can also plant and do reforestation on the fields that are controlled by my farmers. In this way, they can improve their revenues, first of all. Secondly, they can improve their fields because the quality of the soil and also the protection to the wind and to climate change improves. And third, I have control of what I'm doing. But to do that, you have to make a very big project because it's costly, no? So you need to get a lot of hectares, the certification, and so on. But in the future, it's something I want to do. So I hope that in a few years, I'll tell you that everything is compensated within my own value chain, and that's going to be great.
That would be
But
the
let's see.
dream. I mean, that's amazing. And also, I mean, great to hear that, despite not going through the ISO process, it's just based on the values of Boniviri, and I guess you as a founder, you're still offsetting today. Maybe one quick side
Yeah,
note
because
on these green claims. I mean, I'd love to understand, like, what's going on? What is the major issue with green claims that you are seeing, within the industry of packaged foods and things like that?
it's a comment about what I was saying before
Sure.
and
Of course.
introducing this new topic. Yeah, when you are a small entrepreneur like myself, it's difficult, because when you have to certify everything that you say, you cannot afford it basically. So all these regulation, and coming to the answer, are right, but they should be applied specifically to businesses that are enough big to cover that kind of expenses. And it's like that because the regulation basically is targeting that kind of businesses. But I don't want to risk in terms of reputation because if the green claim rule is that you cannot say anything that is enough specific without, substantiating what you're saying, I won't do it because I want to be responsible that way and answer to the law. And so we become very careful in communicating, and we communicate only about facts. So I try to avoid saying that my products are sustainable, and that's it. I try to tell the story, which is we are a B Corp. We are contributing to social and environmental goals that we define in our impact map. We want to somehow improve the life of farmers and create eco-friendly products as much as we can. So that's something I can communicate because it's right.
Right.
And then I always take care about the reporting every year. So the report that you can take a look at, it's very specific and professional. And it's a best practice for a startup. So that's my answer. I'm not doing, green hustling because then there is the other side of greenwashing where you hide from telling the story of the sustainable story of what you're doing.
Right.
But I became much, much more careful when it comes to communication.
Yeah. And I think ultimately transparency is the best way to go, right? Even if you can't do certifications, just being transparent can already greatly increase the confidence of people, consuming the products. And I always find that when they're able to tell the story in a transparent way where they show the data when I buy products, I always tend to trust that a bit more because it's not just words, there's actually numbers behind it.
And transparency also means telling when you are not able to reach the objectives. So last year I wasn't able to reach few objectives. It's written in the impact report because it's true. Once I go in an interview, they asked me, how do you recognize a company which is truly sustainable and it's not only marketing? And my answer was, if they tell also the failure when it comes to sustainability, I trust them. If they don't tell that and everything seems super nice and perfect, there is something wrong. So in our report, I am, honest. That's the way it should be done, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would agree. I had not thought about that before, but that is a good way to test because failures are going to happen. I think it's the intention and the fact that you're doing one step at a time, you're moving forward each month and year that ultimately matters in the longer run.
Yeah.
Great. One more question on impact, and then I'd love to like dive a bit back into the business, but also talk about your personal journey. You mentioned in the
Yeah.
beginning this concept about tradition. So Italy having, a tradition of growing, which a lot of smallholder farmers are retaining or, taking forward that tradition, and you want to have impact in terms of carrying that tradition forward. Could you tell us a bit more about what kind of traditions you mean? And how is the work you're doing having an impact on that? What's the social outcome from there?
Yeah. So some examples are related to the type of plants you're cultivating. So basically, if you want to produce more, you should normally in Sicily you select plants, olive plants, olive trees that are from varieties that are very resilient and are basically made from combination of trees from other countries that then are put in place in Sicily. They are extremely productive for 15 to 20 years, and then they cut the trees and plant them again. So basically, you don't find anymore because it's quite expensive to cultivate them. The old varieties of almonds and oil oil is more common. Almonds is this case. So our approach is let's try to find a way to give a premium price to these products because they are extremely good and particular, and they give them also a value in terms of cuisine. So let's put these products at the attention of chefs that maybe can apply them in super nice restaurants and create something great with these products. And in this way, the producers on the field can keep working with this kind of varieties without compromising what they are doing and extirpate everything and plant again with the new varieties. So this is a way to do that. And then there are very specific and nice products that we don't know because they are from
Yeah.
specific regions. We are trying to make them. So there was a huge hype on Etna wines, the wines from the volcano Etna. So it's huge. Now a piece of land there is super expensive, and all the producers are selling their products basically because there is hype. You can sell them. Why
Yeah.
cannot we do the same with other regions that we have in Sicily that make wine or oil or almonds or herbal teas, spices, and so on? We can. So that's the idea. Let's create the same hype on pizzuta d'avola, which is this kind of almonds I'm talking about, or on black bee honey from Sicily, or on helichrysum, which is a spice from Etna. That's our idea. But to do that, you have to do marketing. You have to tell this how to use that product. You have to tell the story of this product, and create a nice storytelling about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I see how, with the efforts you would put in, a good story, good packaging, finding the right customers, doing all of this becomes super feasible. If I was to think about the other side of this, just more of like as a thought exercise, and think about the mass volumes, which of all the things that you mentioned do you think are also possible to do so that people in general eat better? So people in general are eating better quality and more sustainably produced food? Or do you think almost everything you're doing here is probably not applicable in the mass scale? I'm just trying to understand what's scalable, which things are more only always going to be in the premium side.
No, it is an interesting question. It's also related to the big issue that we have on a global scale about the
Right.
production of agriculture. But of course, about it, you also work on it. So we need to increase the productivity. So what I'm saying on the other side, it's wrong because if we have to have enough food for everybody, we should plant plants that are super productive. So that's it. But at the same time, doing that, you're somehow promoting a type of agriculture which is decreasing biodiversity, which is somehow impairing small producers to grow and prosper, and you are giving value to big companies. So there is always a social return or an environmental return when it comes to these kind of choices. To answer you about our value chain, I believe that some of our products can be easily scaled. For instance, extra virgin olive oil, it's mostly used in Mediterranean countries, but it's a very good alternative in terms of health in comparison to butter, and also in terms of climate, of course. So on a global scale, we can promote extra virgin olive oil as the right alternative, the right fat alternative to butter or other fats. And in Italy, where the market is already strong, a good extra virgin olive oil in comparison to a bad one, it's much better because you use less olive oil to in the kitchen or in your dish, because you don't need so much extra virgin olive oil to feel the flavor and make your. So you use less. So when you have an extra virgin olive oil, few drops are okay. When you have a bad one, you use a lot because it doesn't taste good. So basically, you consume less. You are more healthy because you consume less fat, and it's also better the food that you're eating. So that for me is a no-brainer when it comes to buying a good food product. For the other ones, for example, pasta. Pasta is another product that we have. Our pasta is expensive, so it costs around €5, half a kilo. But it's a pasta that is very rich in terms of fibers, proteins, and is made in a way that it keeps all the properties. So really, when you eat 50 grams of that pasta, you feel already satisfied in comparison to other pasta that are refined and with less nutrients. The same applies for almonds as well. When you go to supermarket and you buy almonds, they are normally made in California or other countries, and they're not Italian and not Sicilian, and they are very old because they put them in containers, and then according to the market price, because it's a commodity, they sell them and so on. So the properties of that almonds are, much somehow they are lost. So when you buy an almond that was made this year, it's a totally different taste, and it's also much better for the health as a nutrient. So that's my selling point, actually.
Absolutely. I agree with all of that, except that if the extra virgin olive oil is super tasty, like the one that Boniviri makes, I think I'll be drinking it like every day because it's so good. But I get what he's saying, that when the flavor is there, you don't actually need as much to really add to your food. Great. And I guess, you said you're 4 years into this roughly now. How big are you right now in terms of, how many acres or how many farmers are you working with today? And do you primarily at this point sell within Italy, or are you selling to some other countries as well?
So we are focusing on the Italian market because it's big enough to reach our business objectives, which are 1 million in 2 years. So we want to have a 1 million revenue in 2 years, and the market it's enough big to do that. In terms of farmers, we have 14 of them right now. The most important product is extra virgin olive oil, but we are enlarging the base. So my idea now is to reach that revenue objective, we should have around 20-25 farmers. And from some of them, we can purchase much more. So the percentage of purchase that we have goes from 5% to 40% from each farmer. So what of the production that he or she has. So in our idea, we should arrive to 50% of product bought from each farmer every year. So increase the level of what we buy every year from the farmers that we already have, and then involve new farmers as well that are needed. And we are focusing on extra virgin olive oil to reach that revenue objectives, because we know that we have the production, enough production to reach that kind of goals. We cannot make it through honey or through products that are complementary. We need one or two products that have enough volumes to reach that objective. So we are focusing on those 2 or 3 products, and then the rest is basically upselling in business terms.
Okay, cool. And in your 4 years so far, if you were to take a step back, because all of this is quite a journey, right? What do you think has been your highest moment? In your journey so far, of course, there'll be hopefully many more moments to go, but Till today, what do you think has been the highest moment?
So on a human and emotionally perspective, I'm extremely happy when I see producers that are happy and are, and they express that to us. So
Mhm.
they are really grateful for what we are doing. And there were many cases in which they were thankful, and that was great because it keeps me alive as a human being, and somehow I have more energy to spend on the project. On a professional point of view, becoming a B Corp was amazing for me. But because I studied it at university, and I did it from scratch. So I created a business from nothing with basically 10K, which is the amount, which is a car.
Yeah.
Not even a car, because now you cannot even buy a car. I use a car. And
Yes,
and
car
it
basically.
became all used car. And from that we were able to become, I believe, the second B Corp in Sicily, and one of the few startups that became B Corp, because we were super young when we became B Corp in comparison to other companies. So we were a native benefit company and a native B Corp. And that's amazing because it's a dream. When I was consulting, I was trying to convince companies to do this kind of journey. As an entrepreneur, I can do what I want. So if I like my company to be a B Corp, it's becoming a B Corp. And that's amazing because you see your ideas straight on the field, applied on the field, and I'm very proud of that. And there are a lot of other moments with my business partners that I really like, moments of joy, also of struggle. Somehow I remember all of them. And it was very intense. It was very intense. And I also learned to do a lot of things that I wasn't able to do before,
Yeah.
business planning, cash flow. So I put myself also also handling, doing the packaging, working, creating the boxes for Christmas. So I did all the life cycle of what you can do in a company, and I like it. So it was an amazing experience, and I learned a lot of lessons. One of those which I really like to mention because it's one of
Sure.
my main suggestion when they ask me is to be anti-fragile, as Taleb taught us. So to put, when you are an entrepreneur, you are small, you can risk a little, but the gain should be exponential. So
Yeah.
in everything I do, when it comes to business, I risk, but if the amount of money or of time that if I lose it, I don't cry. It's okay. But
Yeah.
if I win, the gain is exponential in terms of visibility or revenue or whatever. And I try to avoid those situations in which I risk to lose everything and gain just something that is not so important. And
Yeah.
this is very important when you are a small entrepreneur, in my opinion.
Of course. And just the whole idea that you said of doing everything from strategy and financial modeling to physically packing boxes and just, the whole end to end experience of being a small entrepreneur just sounds amazing. Sounds like really something that's quite exhilarating. But at the same time, what I heard is it's also quite challenging, as you mentioned. As of today, what do you think is, the biggest challenge? What keeps you up at night right now when you think about your business?
So my answer is very common, entrepreneur. Right now, my biggest priority is to make enough revenue to
Yeah.
sustain my supply chain and my business partners, which are also employees. So
Yeah.
right now is survival. I'm in survival mode, and I know that to win this challenge, I have to reach this threshold of 1 million sales, because in that way we are big enough to have a better warehouse, to pay salaries, and be sure we can hire a few people that can help us, to be sure that we can purchase products from our farmers every year. Right now we don't know because it really that our sales are uncertain. While when you have, let's say, that kind of business history and that kind of revenues, you can be much stronger and solid when you make decisions. But I know that this is the means to reach a much more important objectives, which is creating the company I would like to create. So a company that really gives farmers the opportunity of thriving and prospering, So I want a company that can sustain 100 farmers on the field. So I want them to be happy working with us, being sure that what they're doing is impactful, being the edge of sustainability. So I want that. And at the same time, I want a company that can be a point of reference for consumers when it comes to high quality and healthy and sustainable products. So if you think about a good, healthy, good, and impactful extra virgin olive oil, socially impactful, I want you to think about Boniviri, and that's the objectives that I have, basically the long term one.
It's so inspiring, Corrado. Thanks for sharing that. Honestly, I'm really inspired hearing about the vision, and I really hope you reach it. One last thing I'd love to understand is just on a
Thank you.
personal level, So that vision is amazing, and when you talk to people, I think there's only very few who would say that the primary vision of their organization is to be the pinnacle of sustainability and of of impact, and give that message out to consumers as well. What has been your life trajectory that led you to this point where you said, this is the thing I want to build? Because, of course, I mean, we've known each other before. You've done a very good master's program. You were working also in consulting out in the big city. What made you decide that this is the big goal you want to pursue in your life? What's the story behind that?
So when I was working as a consultant in Deloitte in EY, I was always struggling to find an impactful initiative that I can put myself in. So I asked my managers to create a unit for social businesses, B Corps, and benefit companies. I asked them to pay a course to study theory of change. I asked them to put me in the no-profit sector in order to help no-profits to improve the way they measure the impact. So I tried to make it within the company, but I still was struggling to find satisfaction as a human being because the interests were misaligned. But I can understand that it's normal. Then I decided to, but I didn't know the answer, and I'm not sure that this is still the answer, but I am on track probably. So at that point, I was reading a lot. So I was reading tons of books about social impact and everything I could in order to understand what to do. I also created a small no-profit to help businesses do the sustainability transition, especially startups. Then at a certain point, I accepted a job in a no-profit working in Tunisia, Jordan, and Lebanon, and it was in agriculture. But still, the no-profit way of doing things is totally different from my perspective because I don't want grant to solve problems. I want business to solve them. So
Yeah.
I understood the tools that were used in the no-profit sector, but that wasn't my cup of tea. So at that point, I decided, okay, let's try to think about, and then that was the game changer, the problems that I have just, at one step from me. So my friend Sergio was there. We were at dinner. I asked him, look, man, what about your farm? How is it going? And he was telling me, no, it's a problem. Every year, I don't know how much I produce. Every year, I don't know. I sell the almonds at the price I produce them. So for me, it's zero value. And for my father was the same. So I started thinking about, okay, let's find a way to help these people sell their products in a better way. I started with a product that I knew, which was extra virgin olive oil, and then build up from the problem, reverse thinking in order to get to the objectives, and then outcomes, output. So I applied theory of change to the problem that I had just in my kitchen, basically. And then it started becoming a business. And then I applied the lean theory for a startup. So I tried to do small tests, 100 bottles, then 1,000. Then let's do the company and see if it works. And then I negotiated with my previous employer part-time contract, so I could sustain myself while founding the company. And I did it for 2-3 years. So that was the way. And my answer is that's the way I think now. So everything changed from the moment I understood that I should think about the small problems I had here just in front of me. And now, when I think about them, I always do this exercise of thinking about a business that can solve that problem. And I am much more, oriented to this kind of thinking now. And that's why I believe I will create other businesses as well. Well, even within Boniviri, like I know that for restaurants is a big issue to be sustainable. I partnered with a company in UK called the Sustainable Restaurant Association. So we became the exclusive partner in Italy for the promotion of their standard. So we are now selling consultancy to restaurants to become sustainable. We have another business unit called Food Make Good with a person that is dedicated to this project. But that's the way, my mind works now. While before, when I was in consultancy, I thought that the answer was to solve much bigger problems or find the solution within endeavors that were already there. Now, I start from small problems I can solve. And
Yeah.
then let's
And
see if
and
it can get bigger and bigger.
yeah, no, and that's actually quite interesting, right? Because there are two sides to this problem, and I do think a lot of young people now, right now, who are motivated to either work in sustainability or have an impact are in bigger corporations, but do face this problem on a daily basis of misaligned incentives, right? The corporation is there for shareholder value, for monetary value, and while we know the theory is there that says that maximum long-term shareholder value is linked to sustainability, it often gets pushed down because of short-term gains and things like that. So I guess
Yeah.
there is this other alternative, which is what you've done, right? Which is to say, let's build a business from scratch whose objectives and whose goals are fully aligned with sustainability. But of course, it comes with its own challenges around scale and revenue and survival, which are things you're dealing with right now. If you think about a young person watching this and
Yeah.
maybe they're in a similar dilemma, right? Like they're trying to figure out what next steps to take to maximize their impact, and maybe they have it in their mind that they start something small and grow it with complete alignment from the beginning. I guess advice would you have for them in terms of just building up the courage to be able to take this kind of step, knowing that there are risks there? What do you do, maybe, for example, to maintain courage in the face of all of these challenges and just keep going one step at a time towards building your vision?
Okay. So my advice would be to be a little bit more, you know, reflective of what you're doing, because the answer to the problems that you see and that you want to solve because you want to feel good about what you're doing in this life can somehow can be found in many different ways without totally changing your life. So let's say, for instance, you see a big problem that in your city that you want to solve about homeless people or about food, about, I don't know, climate change. You can start finding doing something even in a small scale, even without creating a business. So maybe with a no profit, or with an association, and you start put yourself already close to that issue that you want to solve. And then you get to know that problem much better, much better, much better. And then you'll find a way to create the solution that is needed to solve that problem, or at least to contribute to the solution of that problem. So my advice is to get closer to the problem as much as you can. And then when you understand the problem very deeply, you probably can change your life and dedicate it full time to solving that problem. So that's actually what I did with the problem that I really have in mind right now, which is related to agriculture, as you know. And it's the same approach I am applying to other problems that I see that I want to solve. Because if you put yourself 100% in solving a problem that you don't know very, very well, you're going to be super nervous. You're going to be in a different position, also professionally, with your family and so on. So you want to be clear-minded, and you want to find a way, a compromise that can give you a good balance in your life and at the same time contribute to a challenge that you care about. So that's my advice. And then it's gonna be natural because it's gonna keep growing and growing and growing. You'll find a lot of time to do that because you like it, and you don't burn yourself in 1 month because you put 100% of it, and then you are done. It's like cultivating an olive tree. It takes time.